Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel, and thanks for logging on. Today we're discussing one of the best designed, most distinctive, and certainly most committed dive watch designs of the 2000s. It's the Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Compressor Diving Chronograph, 44mm in grade 5 titanium. You can see this mid-2000s Jaeger-LeCoultre diving chronograph on our website. Purchase it there, and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you enjoy these videos. You can also click on the card in the upper right hand corner of the screen at any time during this video to see our full sales listing for this and our entire collection of Jaeger-LeCoultre timepieces. Now, the watch on my wrist is a big one to be sure, but it wears compact, possibly one of the most compact 44mm watches you'll wear. Now, on my 16cm circumference oval profile wrist, the watch is 44 across the round of the case, not including the crowns or compressor winglets. In terms of thickness, it has a sheer side and 16.1mm thick. It's not going to fit under most tighter cuffs, but then again, that's not really the style or the purpose of the watch. 52mm from lug to lug across the wrist makes this a very wearable watch when paired with the lightness of titanium. The grade 5 has, in my experience, better scratch resistance than conventional steels, while also being much lighter on the wrist. Also, the lugs themselves are short cropped and don't project far beyond the flanks of the case. So though my wrist is 16cm, I believe down to 15cm, maybe even 14.5 with an oval wrist, you should be able to wear this watch with great security and comfort. There are several strap options and bracelet options for this watch: textile, leather, full titanium bracelet, full titanium and rubber coated, and that's just among the factory options. I think it's important to note on a utility style timepiece like this, the lug spacing, which is 22mm, should you want to throw it on one of the factory alternatives or a custom aftermarket strap, it's compatible with a broad range, basically anything that uses spring bars at 22mm. Now, the strap is nicely articulated with a sort of bellows pattern, accordion-like. It makes it more flexible and supple on the wrist. Of course, there's no constraint in pulling it straight down around the tight curve of a small wrist, and because of these channels, as well as small scalloped portions on the underside of the strap, the wrist is able to vent, aerate, let moisture, grit, sweat, and oil escape on hot days. The pin buckle makes for easy and fast adjustments. It's handsome yet simple, arced with a polished flank and a satin top. The case itself is very much in that vein. Minimalist and understated. You can see that the finish is mostly satin or brushed to deter glare and maximize practicality, but there is nuance. Note the horizontal sweep of the satin finish on the case flank in contrast with the vertical satin finish of the lugs. Though it's mostly satin finish, you'll notice there's a small amount of polish on the knurled coined edges of the bezel, as well as a hairline bevel along the flank of the lugs on each side, nicely polished. You'll also note that there's a small step at the junction point between lug and case to break up the monotony of metal and give it a strong character line at each corner. Now, the bezel itself is quite deluxe, with a circular satin finish, polished indices, lacquer inserted into the Arabic numerals, as well as the first 15 minutes elapsed on the bezel. There's an oversized triangular pearl that is quite legible. Oftentimes, the practicality of these luminescent pearls is undermined by a rather small aperture or a small unprotected dot of lume. Here it's nicely recessed within its triangle, and it's a generous amount. So when you turn it to align it with the white gold trapeze style minute hand, you'll be able to mark your reference point relative to the hand even in pitch black. Now, of course, the dial is also a matte finish to deter glare, but it's beautifully thought out. First, let me clarify that this is a great diving bezel. Before we jump into the dial, the detents are wonderfully crisp. You feel them, they're sharp, they have plenty of resistance to deter unwanted movement, and you can hear the clicks individually. Positive confirmation by sense of touch as well as hearing that the watch is delivering as requested. Now, the dial features all applied white gold indices, Arabic numerals, matching white gold, trapeze hands at center, plenty of luminescence. There's the matte finish of the dial base, which deters glare, of course, but there's also an interesting ISO-mandated constant operation indicator at 6 o'clock. Now, you don't have to have a constant seconds hand on a dive watch. What you do have to have is a constant operation indicator to confirm that the watch is running when you don it for a dive. So here's Jaeger-LeCoultre has achieved that with a bicolored blue and white disc. It's both more visible than a constant seconds hand and more inventive. Something very much like this has been seen on Richard Mille dive watches. Now you know where they got the idea. You'll also note that the hour counter at 9 o'clock uses a conventional hand to indicate the hour, rather than the somewhat whimsical and unconventional disc used on the conventional master compressor chronograph. So here we have a conventional hand indicating hours, a conventional hand indicating minutes in jump fashion, constant seconds, and a very discrete date at 4:30. Now, unlike many dive watches which perplex with their use of a tachymeter scale, this one thoughtfully includes a pulsation scale, as that can be a critical metric when determining oxygen deprivation during a dive. Of course, no mechanical dive watch is being used today as a primary dive instrument, but it's important to know that your backup is professional equipment, and this one is, both in terms of its substance and its ISO credentials. What makes it different, though, is the compressor key system. Now, unlike the standard master compressors, which are 100 meters water resistant, this one is 1,000 meters water resistant, and it's achieved with the same ease as the other compressor crowns. A quarter turn locks or unlocks your chronograph, and a half turn locks and unlocks your primary crown. It's easy to manipulate them with wet, sweaty, or gloved hands. Absolutely a pleasure to use, visually distinctive, and quite practical. It is, like Panerai device protecting the crown and locking lever, an alternative to the long-serving screw-down crown. And again, far more practical with gloved, wet, or sweaty hands. Underneath the case back, Jaeger-LeCoultre in-house caliber 751D, 65-hour power reserve, twin mainspring barrels, 4 Hz beat rate, very tough, free sprung, laser welded hairspring at the stud and the collet, unidirectional winding for higher efficiency, unlubricated high-tech ceramic rotor bearings, vertical clutch for smooth activation of the chronograph sweep seconds, and a column wheel for crisp actuation of chronograph functions. The other advantage of the vertical clutch is that you can just leave it running if you prefer center seconds with no additional hazard to the movement. A handsome landmark watch for Jaeger-LeCoultre, its first stab at a diving chronograph since the reference 2643 Shark of the 1960s. You can own this one on our website.